Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of What the Why with Barbara Ann on RVN Television. If you haven't seen us before, our show features conversations with diverse leaders from all walks of life about why they do what they do and how they figured things out. Maybe you are sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, or you feel stuck and you want to get unstuck in your business or your job or even in your life. All of our guests have had something in common with you. At some point in their lives, they felt similarly, and today is no exception. Please join me in welcoming all the way from across the pond, Thom Dennis, executive coach, facilitator, and speaker, who transforms individuals and organizations with new thinking and conscious approaches to leadership development and culture change. Thom is CEO of Serenity in Leadership, as well as the wearer of other hats. For the last 30 years, he's led companies dedicated to bringing out the best in people through coaching and training and increasing self-awareness, defining strategy, working through M&As, and improving communication. He holds a Master of Science in Change Agent Skills and Strategies with the Human Potential Resource Group through the University of Surrey, and lots of other relevant education and systems, human and family constellations. He also is certified with the World Business Forum in New York City, and he is CQ, or Cultural Quotient, certified with the Cultural Intelligence Center. He's also a really empathetic and fascinating person to talk with. So, without further ado, please join me in a round of applause to welcome Thom Dennis via Zoom from West Bergholt, England in the United Kingdom to our show. So, yay! Round of applause. So, thank you for joining us. What time is it where you are right now?
It's nearly 20 to 9 in the evening.
Yeah, so you gotta love the time distance. It's still time differences. It's still afternoon here on the day that we're recording this episode. And as you know, and as everybody who watches us regularly, we like to ask our guests, after reading their bio and talking about the impressive things they've done, what they wanted to be when they were growing up. So Thom, as a young lad growing up in England, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
Well, from what I remember, my father was an engineer, and his world really filled mine in many ways. He used to come home, he worked incredibly hard, but at weekends he also worked hard, but he applied his hands to making furniture. And so I was always there with a sort of little pretend saw or a pretend hammer. And I think that, being an engineer was what I hoped to be.
Yeah. So how did you get from little Thom with the pretend saw wanting to be an engineer to being, a leading voice in cultural advocacy and coaching and leadership development?
I think my life was very influenced by boarding school. I went to boarding school at the age of 8, and actually I don't have much memory from before that. So the atmosphere at that school led me to really be pretty outraged at how leaders so often abuse the power that they have. Mm-hmm. And they damage people. And they damage the cultures in the organizations in which they work. So that really has influenced me a great deal. And I went through a number of iterations of being an engineer for a while, being a lifeguard, being a trainee airline pilot, and so on, and then joining the Royal Marines. And the urge to join the Marines was about proving myself to myself. I chose the most difficult route I could find because I wanted to succeed and prove to myself that I could do that. Mm-hmm. And I saw some incredibly good leaders in that time, and one or two not so hot ones. But they didn't abuse their power. But nevertheless, that seed had been well and truly sown in me, so that when I came out, I was attracted to working with organizations to help them develop their cultures and actually make places safe for people to work in. Mm-hmm. So that drive is an early one, and it's really followed me all the way through.
Yeah, and I know when we had talked, you had shared that, boarding school in particular was a nightmare in so many ways for you. To the extent that you're comfortable talking about that, I know that significantly informed what you do now. But it's not something that you see too much of here in the United States. It's very popular in other countries, but we don't have a lot of boarding schools for younger people here. And I know that.
No, but
go ahead.
On the other hand, you have plenty of other ways to traumatize small children.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's that leads to the dysfunction that we see in so many leaders. It doesn't have to be a boarding school. And actually, that school was amazing in many ways because it was a very beautiful place with amazing facilities. It's just the way that some of the staff behaved that was pretty awful. Mm-hmm. But as I say, if you look across the leadership in the world today, you see an awful lot of people holding huge power and abusing it.
Yeah.
And if you look back at their early childhood, you'll see an awful lot of trauma. So this is something that sort of informed my work all the way through is early trauma and how it affects behavior in adult life.
Mm-hmm. And so that, in many ways, that became your mission in terms of working, and as I mentioned, I mean, you've done certifications at family level, the human level, at the systemic level. Talk to us about how your body of work has come together in what is now your company.
Thank you. It's an interesting question. As you've mentioned, that I trained as a coach when I retired from the Marines, and then I became involved in. I became involved in energy healing. I became a Reiki teacher, and that sort of took me much more into the spiritual world, and also having a great sensitivity to energy and looking at how energy was flowing or not in organizations. And when I did the masters, one of the things I looked at was just the dynamics in an organization of their reception. It's extraordinary how much you can learn about an organization by the way that they set up the reception area and how actually the people who occupy that are treated and so on. It's a fascinating sort of micro study of the whole. One of the things that university degree did was introduce me to really all the different modalities of psychotherapy. Okay. And I was particularly attracted to a number of those, not least Gestalt, which then sort of took me into this the study of the family systems and how families or people live out various aspects of the family system, very often unconsciously. It's a little complicated to describe it, but it gives one a window into what's happening in family systems, which is absolutely fascinating. And looking at that work, you can often see extraordinary healing events when the system is allowed to, when the truth is told in a system. Families have so many secrets, and that's really very unhealthy. And of course, that applies across the board into into organizations. Because people take their own family system into the organization, plus there's the system of the organization itself. So it's a very complex makeup that you have. And I think very often new leaders come into organizations and they try and sweep the board and start again, or impose their own ideas without actually looking at the history of how the organization got to where it is now, and the history. You have to honor the history and the people that have got the business to where it is now before you can move on. Doesn't mean to say you can't change things. You can, but you have to honor where things have come from. And I think very often that is people are in too much of a hurry and they cut all that away and they end up reinventing the wheel, which actually costs a lot of money to the bottom line and to the morale of the people working there.
Mm-hmm. You know, I'm so glad you brought this up, because as recently as last week, I was commenting to a couple of different entities about the lack of transparency and failure to communicate. And isn't that, you know, especially the failure to communicate, that's like one of the biggest problems in families. And it is the biggest problem in organizations. And it sounds like you really delve into that as part of the work that you do.
Yeah, I think you've got to go deep. If you're trying to work on a culture, you can't do it, you know, just by flicking your fingers. It takes time, and you've really got to go. As I say, yeah, I look under the carpets and behind the wallpaper. It's fascinating how cultures are made up, and the things that are important in one place are just not at all important in others. Yeah. But I mean, in a sense, that's great. It's wonderful. If everything was the same, it'd be unbelievably boring. Yeah, there's elements. You said it. Transparency. When you hide things, it is never good. Mm-hmm. And when you don't tell the truth, it's never good. Yep. These things come out.
Yep. So, believe it or not, we're already at the halfway point. So, for those of you who are watching, please come back after this brief break from our sponsors for more of our conversation with Thom Dennis and the work that he's doing, both as a coach but also in office culture, which is an increasingly important topic these days. Welcome back to What the Why with Barbara Ann on RVN Television, and today's very special guest, Thom Dennis, who's joining us all the way from England, part of the United Kingdom. And we were having a conversation about, you know, the challenge within organizations and transparency and communication, and how so much of that is, you know, not only things we encounter in families and other aspects of life, but it is the number one problem that most companies do face. So if you would like to chime in from there, you know, during the commercial break, we talked a little bit about, you know, what it's like for these different entities to grow and evolve, and leaders that want to come in and make changes all of a sudden without knowing the history, and talk about a way to drive a company into the ground quickly. I've seen it, I've been part of it. You know, when someone hires you, what are they looking for?
Well, people hire me when the pain is great enough that they actually feel that something needs to change.
Yeah.
It would be much nicer if people called me rather more often when things were going really well and they wanted to make things even better.
Yeah.
So I think that with cultures, typically there's been a change of some sort. The leader has changed, or somebody within the leadership team has changed, or there's been somebody's tried to take them over, or they're trying to take over another organization. So it's in that period where there's an enforced change of some sort that I can go in and really help to smooth that change. I often talk about mergers and acquisitions because they are typically driven by the financiers, because they make their money on the deal. And they all then go off to the Bahamas or wherever it is that or Florida, where they enjoy themselves, leaving this newly merged organization to sort of sort itself out. And these moves can be incredibly painful and really destructive. And the people left holding the baby, so to speak, have got to sort this out. And what I often say is, if you get me in before you do the deal, I can save you literally millions of dollars, typically, because we can look at what are the two leadership teams that are coming together. You know, you often hear people say, "Oh, look, we're in the same business. It's no problem. We do the same thing." But it's so often not the case at all. That you might be in the same industry and you might be producing roughly the same thing, for instance, but the way that organizations go about these things is so different. And so when you combine a leadership team, you've got people who are thinking in completely different ways. So let's help these people. Let's help them make the whole thing successful, and let's care for the people through this, so that it doesn't have to be a completely horrific experience. You know, so often you talk to middle managers, and you talk about change, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, you know, we had one of those 6 months ago, and we've learned what to do now. You just keep your head down and say yeah to the people up top, but actually don't worry about it too much, because in 6 months they'll come up with a new idea and we'll have to start all over again." And it breeds that cynicism, which is just so unhelpful for organizations. So yeah, get me in early. That's the message there.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes, 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 with an exclamation point, because oftentimes it's coming in to do damage control. And the other thing that you know, I've seen, I suspect you've seen as well, is you end up with a culture where it's everybody's in competition. They're in survival mode, and you know, it can get brutal in terms of every person for themselves. And go ahead.
So, well, you're not going to get an effective team if they're all talking behind each other's backs and trying to kill each other.
Yes.
So this sense, this idea that you know, if you can get this sort of bloodlust going, that it's going to make everybody more effective. It doesn't. It increases fear throughout the organization, which eats away at people, particularly the quieter people who just want to do their job and earn a bit of money and you know, go home and be happy. So people sort of very disparagingly talk about soft skills, but these are people skills. These are the skills that make an organization thrive. I always say, you know, organizations thrive if people thrive.
Yep.
And you know, the statistics on this are very, very strong. You'll get far more actual profit, actually, by being nice as opposed to being horrible. So we need to grow up. And actually that takes you back to the early trauma piece I was talking about, because so often these leaders need to drive and lead through fear, because that's the model they've brought from childhood.
Yeah.
And they're still acting it out. And so often the work is around helping these leaders let go of very difficult pasts so that they can be fully themselves, not what they were conditioned to be when they were little.
Wow.
Sounds a bit deep, but actually it's very effective, that work.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense, because at some point the cycle has to be broken.
Yeah.
And doing some similar work with positive intelligence, it's amazing how it not only affects those people in the office, but in every other aspect of their life when they address those challenges. So I think that's awesome. And actually, one of the interesting things you mentioned, you were a Reiki master. I saw that you, with everything else you've got going on, you've actually done volunteer Reiki within the prison system. So how does that fit in the overall scope of everything that you're doing in terms of changing cultures and helping people live into their potential and their purpose?
Well, I learned an awful lot about leadership in prison. I really did. And actually, I was in what they call over here a Category A prison, working there. And there are an awful lot of people in for a long time, for murder and, serious crimes. And somehow, it seems weird to say this, but somehow there was quite a lot of similarity between some of these people and the people that I was dealing with who were CEOs of organizations. They do say that at least, it depends who you talk to, but 20 or 30% of CEOs display an awful lot of psychopathic behavior. Mm-hmm. And that's what I was coming across in the prisons. So it's just slightly more extreme, but not that much. It's just that their life took a different path. The major difference, I guess, is that people are locked up there. And we have prison systems in the US and in the UK which are not really designed to help people rehabilitate. They're just there to punish. Yeah. And that makes for a very, very dysfunctional atmosphere, which is dangerous and is full of fear and violence. And I hope and pray for the day when we actually bring a level of civilization to these establishments so that we actually help people, because there are reasons why they're there. Yeah. I don't think anybody is truly a bad person, but they, because of the way that their life has gone, they have, it's that aspect of themselves that it is amplified above all else. And how amazing it can be to help people. And I saw that. I saw both sides. I saw people who actually committed a crime in the prison within 2 months of being released because they couldn't face going out because they were so institutionalized. Mm-hmm. And I saw people who were absolutely determined to make good of their life and to learn, despite all the impediments put in their way, to learn and to go out as better people. And I'd love to see a lot more of that. These are just really amplified elements of society, prisons, and we can learn a lot from what goes on there, I think, both good and bad.
Wow. So well said. And actually, we are at time. So thank you so much for joining us from England. It's interesting how we are similar in so many ways, an ocean apart in terms of the challenges that we face in corporate arenas. For those who are interested in connecting with you, because I know you operate internationally, what is the best way for people to do so?
Well, my email is Thom with an H, THOM, at serenityinleadership.com. I'm on LinkedIn, as is Serenity in Leadership. And we have a YouTube channel. If people are interested, look for Leading Responsibly with Integrity and Purpose. That's the theme that we run through all our podcasts. So, yeah, and I'd love to hear from people. I'd love to hear from people who agreed with some of the things I said, and some of the people who think I said a load of rubbish. I'd love to hear from both if there are those people out there. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you tonight.
Oh, thank you so much for being on our show and sharing both the personal aspects as well as the professional journey with us. So, and now, as for our upcoming guests, you really don't want to miss any of those conversations either. They include business owners and coaches and authors and technology experts, entrepreneurs. We've got some disability and diversity advocates, an attorney, and of course, a common theme of people who overcame seemingly insurmountable challenges to find their purpose. So please tune in and learn and be inspired by how what they did change their trajectory in their life and how you can do it too. And if you missed any of our past guests and want to check out what they had to say, all of seasons 1, 2, and 3 to date are available on demand on the What the Why page of RVN Television's website, as well as on Roku. These days you have so many viewing choices, so thank you very much for watching our show, and please tell a friend or colleague about us. And as a reminder, What the Why does air 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year on rvntelevision.com, as well as on Roku and coming soon to other channels. And also please remember, whether you're looking to make changes in your life, no matter how big or small, tune in again for more inspirational, illuminating, and informative conversations with guests such as Thom Dennis, who overcame whatever challenges or obstacles lay in their path to find their core purpose in life and to live it.